Everyone, and a very happy Tuesday to all of you. A couple quick announcements. I am recording this later tonight because I wanted to take an opportunity to get all of the last little bits of the Poker-Pus work in progress so I can give you feedback tonight so that you can finish it up tomorrow. Because reminder, they are due tomorrow, midnight Eastern Standard Time, so get those submitted. Another announcement for tomorrow. So tomorrow I am going to be leaving the home where I usually do my critiques from the wicker bed. Um, and I'll be heading back to Manhattan. It's going to be a little bit of a hectic day, so I will not be able to do a video critique, but I will be logging on later to give any sort of written critique and feedback in the Facebook forum. So, without much further ado, let's get started. So, I wanted to go through the let's go through the Poker-Pus ones first, because, like I said, I know that those are urgent. So, first up, we have Dani's submission. So, for this work in progress, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was the volumetric light. I know I kind of mocked that up, and it kind of looked like this, but I think that you can get more of a fall off here on the edge. That it just feels like a very hard line, and like we don't want to feel that triangle. You kind of want to blend it down just a little bit more. Perhaps it's okay if under the light gets this bright because it's going to be that blown out, but you really, really need to create some more glow up there, like because you don't want it to just be bright with a crisp edge, because from like a photographic standpoint, it doesn't really work that way. You would need it to have a little bit of a brighter kind of haloing effect around it. Would need to be done in order to kind of better achieve that look, and even that's a little bit uh, light. Like you would almost need to double down on that again. Something more like that. You know what I'm saying? Like so, it's bleeding along the edge and kind of wrapping around, because when it gets that bright, you really want to see that. Um, Couple other things. You know what? We may want to pull off this rim light just because it's kind of showing some of the faults of this character. Like his foot looks kind of weird. It also just it's kind of emphasizing the deadness of the character. So maybe we just keep this more of like a stronger silhouette. In terms of the character lighting, I think we can push. We can play more bounce light from this table onto the character's face to really get that to read a little bit more. Um, because the face is getting a little bit on the dark side, um, and then these spotlights on these cards are really cool, but I would just soften the edge and tone them down just a little bit. Um, and then the last thing, I would encourage you to try and make the lights a little bit more saturated to bring some more color. Like, we can really. This is an interior scene. Maybe we can push this. Oh, sorry. Same thing with that overhead light can go. Um, just like a little bit more probably saturated towards the warm side, since it's probably a tungsten light. But like if we took the whole scene and just pushed it, like just gave it some more, like let's just say we just pushed a lot more warmth into it, or just something to give it a little bit more um, character, a little bit more oomph to it. I think that would really kind of help a lot in helping read the emotion of the scene, because right now it's a little sterile and it's a little bit um, it's just like a little bit neutral. So I think we can push that a little bit more. Okay, next Poker-Pus we've got Forrest, who's got this super wide angle shot, which makes the tentacles a lot of fun. I actually really really enjoy that. Um, I love kind of the cool versus the warmth that we're seeing in the foreground versus the background. I feel like we could push the value shifts a little bit more. Like I feel like, I mean, I like that this light's coming in here. I just think back in this region we can get darker and maintain some of that coolness. You can even increase the cool saturation a bit more, and that will really kind of help bring the foreground closer. For the cards themselves, I know this might just be personal preference. I just kind of want to I want to pull off some of that warm. Um, I want to pull back some of the saturation on the warmth of those, And I want him to feel a little bit more neutral, I guess, or just like a little bit more um, towards their traditional hero color a little bit. Um, I mean, you don't necessarily need to go quite this far, but I would shift them a little bit around that way. Just these cards in the foreground, I guess. Um, this mediocre hand, this this tentacle has. I think we can. I think that will really help out a lot. I think you can also probably go darker um, back in here too, kind of behind the table, because there's really, like we can isolate the light just to the table here in the middle and allow that to go um, a little bit darker and allowing that to pop forward. I think the light is. I'm not convinced that that light's hitting his face like that. Like it feels like it's falling behind him. I think that this value can come down a lot, and we can soften it and kind of bring it around so so the overall brightness comes down, but the brighter area comes around his face a little bit more. So it's like a softer shaping on him. That being said, you can certainly keep it as a rim light, this kind of rim light on the edge there. And I love some of the specular highlights we're getting on some of these as well. If you're keeping this angle, I would take out that little bit of um, tentacle there. It's throwing me off a little bit, like it's kind of breaking things spatially. And then lastly, the ground over here, either darken it in here, or we need to add like a little bit of bump or something in there, because I can feel the texture kind of stretching in there, and maybe just the warping on the lens, but that feels like it's stretching a little bit. And then um, if we can, and I guess this is just the nature of the way it is, but when we want to make sure that we're reading these tentacles as kind of all one creature. And this is really hard, but basically they all look pretty different. Like I love the blue speck on this one, but this one doesn't really have it. It's much warmer. This one's much cooler. These are much darker, and it's okay that there's some subtle differences between them, but right now they're very, very different. So I would try and center those down, and then I tone down the specular highlight on the eyes and the overall brightness in the eye. But yeah, but this is really cool. This is a really great setup. I like this a lot. And I love the color and low light level reference that you have. And I think that this is actually a really good example of the shaping that we're looking for, and not quite so much that brightness, but something along like these lines, or like what this guy has here, is really cool stuff. So really great job. All right, let's close these out. Okay. Who's up next? Jenn. Yes. Love the modifications. I think we can go a little softer on this edge, but all working well. I think the cards can get a little brighter, just in there. And yeah, just the same thing, just like we've got that harsh edge, and I think we can lift the value of the cards in there. And maybe, just maybe, like 2 more pixels of blur on the background, but I really love the shaping back there, and I wouldn't change much else about that. And then if there's any way, like this green speck in his skin just looks like it will be noisy. Actually, all that speck in there looks like it would be noisy. Maybe just increase the samples on that too, or just the resolution overall. Probably just the samples on that light I think would work. But really great job there. And let's see if we have any others. Yes, Nigel. So we've got your reference, a couple of reference points here. So one of the things with these underwater shots is the dark to light aerial perspective is really used to create shaping from front to back. In yours, it's just kind of, there's no, it's just basically like these darks are very, very dark. And I know that we're underwater, and so they just wouldn't, you'd feel a little bit more of the brightness. This feels um, like I don't feel like this character is underwater at all, because we're not seeing any of that filled in super dark value. Like same thing here. Like this feels underwater because there's like a little bit of that extra bounce, and there's even a little bit of that haze kind of creeping over him there. Um, and I think that you might, like, I don't want to totally occlude him with the God rays coming down, but just like a little bit of volumetric over top of him would really, really be beneficial. Um, If you kind of squint your eyes at this shot, the biggest thing that's popping out to me is the red visor, because the saturation on that is and the green tabletop, because the saturation on that is higher than the rest of the scene, and the hue is different. So pretty much the rest of the scene is purple blues, but the green and red really are contrasting to that and really stand out, especially the red. Like the red's not even really that bright, but it's the saturation that really stands out. So my point in saying all that is I think if it was me, I would shift the hue of the character to be a little bit um, more along lines of that red, because the purple is really just kind of blending him into the environment a little bit. I do like some of the subsurface scattering stuff that you're getting here in the tentacles. I think that's looking really, really good. Um, I like the bling blings on on the gold chips here. I do think that some of these in here are like, this one's getting really super bright, and it's okay to draw our attention to them, because that is a very cool thing. And again, like you're drawing attention to the kitty in the middle there. But I think that like that being that bright, we're not seeing it represented in the character as much, and so I just think that like I would just take the character, brighten him up a little bit, and then adjust the hue around a little bit too. So that would be my suggestions there. Um, just want to get back to, we're going to come back to these other images in just a minute, but I do want to get to a couple things here. First one was a question about, in animation studios, are the models slash characters locked off after the animation so the lighter doesn't accidentally move them around during lighting? Yes, absolutely. Um, I know in the studios that I've worked at, there's been ways of checking in the animation, um, and they're usually baked in a separate file, so you actually don't even have access to that information. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that. We also save lots of iterations. We have backups. There's lots of things going on so that you can never like you can never cause like permanent problem to the animation or anything like that. Um, Depeche answered it really well. But yeah, totally not something that you need to worry about in a animated studio environment. The other thing I wanted to hop over, it was talk about Holly's shot. So Holly, you are up. Okay, so everything's looking good here. Um, I did notice all of these shapes in the windows. I don't know if they were there before, but I think we can just blur them a little bit. And it's also odd that they're in these buildings, but not like in this building here or in these buildings around. So I would maybe consider adding them to other places, and softening the edge a little bit. In terms of the headlights on the cars, I was looking at them and I was like, I wonder. You know what? Let's go ahead and take a look at some reference. So I found this aerial. Oop, I found this aerial footage, and one of the things I was noticing about well, two things. One, there's a lot of light spill on the street level, from the buildings and the surrounding stuff. But like looking at the headlights, let's see, you can see that like you get a spill from the headlight, but you actually don't really see that much from the taillight unless you're seeing the taillight itself. So in looking at, I think we can probably tone down this tail light a little bit and just see like the little, it's a little bit of spill with a little bit with more of the red dots on the tail light themselves. And then I'm wondering if it would be possible to increase just kind of the amount of light that's kind of going onto the ground. Um, and really emphasize that. I think that would be the big thing to take us over the edge. Sorry to go back and forth on you a whole bunch on this, but I think that's the right way forward to really make this a good, clean, polished final image. So let me know if you have any questions there, Holly. Okay, so let's hop back into um, these last ones here. Okay, let's start at the top. So we've got Alfredo with this really beautiful reference image, lots of light, bright light shining in, hitting the pool. You're doing a good job matching that reference. I think overall we can go a little bit brighter outside this window. Like the brights feel a little bit clipped. Um, like they don't feel like if I grab this value, I guess it is kind of pure white, but it's not, it's just not feeling as super. It's not, you know what it is? It's not the color of it. It's like the blur around the edge of these things and just like the amount of blowout that we're getting. That's kind of like softness overall. And I think you can kind of push that up a little bit. Additionally, the other thing that you really want to notice that I think is really cool is check out the bounce on these walls. So you can see that the like light is shining in here. It's hitting this floor. It's bouncing up. It's also hitting the water and bouncing up. So anything like down here. Oh, my color back. Anything like down in this area is going to be like a bouncer, a warmer bounce color, and then everything from here up is that cooler from off the water, and be really, really nice if you've got that kind of warm to cool bounce fall off going up there. Um, I think the color of your water can go a little bit more saturated blue. I think you can push that a little bit stronger. Um, and overall, I think maybe just the darks can get a little bit darker, like that. The brights can get a little bit brighter, like more along these lines, and then let's add a little, like a little bit more happy glowiness into it. Something a little bit more along with. Oops. Ah, sorry about that. My earbud just dropped out of my silly shaped ears. Um, so like where you had it before to that, just adding a little more happiness, more glowiness all around. Your other shot here, I think this is looking a lot better. I still think that this is a little bit on the bright side, and I would continue to and the feet seem a little bit bright. I would just darken the feet a little bit, and then perhaps run an ambient occlusion to get those to kind of ground into place there. But this is coming together really well. Again, still love the color of the and the black cloak there, but I still feel like we can just go a little bit darker there towards the base. Dani, so I don't think you asked a question about like losing the warmth in the ground. I don't think so because like looking at this reference, it's not. It's interesting because it's more about this bleed of color over everything that makes it feel. Oh man, just did that. Staying. Hold on just one second. Sorry. It's more like the like you've got a little bit of bleed here. It's more about it being like everywhere, like really kind of overpowering. And then the other big thing that I want to point out to you is just how dark these buildings are. You really want to match more of like these values in here. So we're seeing a little bit, it's not like super dark because there is a lot of light that will be bouncing back up into that space. Um, and same thing like in the fill values in here. Like we don't want those to get too super dark. Like you really want to play up the bounce light around here a little bit more. And then just make sure that you're softening some shadows. And it looks like there's some like that pole might be floating a little bit. So just watch out for that. Um, Same thing with this pole here too, because there seems to be like a detachment from the shadow to the object. It would be really nice too if like on these things, I'm kind of curious as to why it's not happening. Like we should see more color bleed from these objects onto the ground. It shouldn't just be like a straight shadow. So I'm curious as to why that's happening. That's interesting. Um, and then just getting some more light wrap from the sky onto the buildings. Like once you kind of fill that in, you'll get a little more light wrap on there. Grayson, cool stuff here. But the first thing that I look at when I see this is I only see this shape on his nose. That it's like I don't it's just it's so and like you can see it here. There's similar values, like you're heading in the right direction. It's just like these super sharp shadows like right here and up on the hair are really throwing me off. So you want to increase the radius of your light to get those to soften up a little bit. And then also look at her neck, her chin, and even in the blues of her skin, lots of specular light. Not a lot of specularity going on here. We really want to feel like the reflection of that light in his chin and some of the other values as well. Um, And then in terms of the character color versus the background color, notice how the background behind her is a shade darker than she is. I think you can take this background down in brightness a little bit to get that kind of fall back in the space. And also like get a little bit more variation as we go across in that like central spot back behind him there. And then, yeah, I think those are the big ones for now. I'd hit those, and then we'll see where we land from there. Jordan, cool stuff here. I really like the color scheme that you're getting. I think that's working out really well, and it's really feeling like your reference and this volumetric light is working out really well too. Um, the one thing about it is like it feels like the rays are kind of spraying outward, which makes it feel like there's a light just off camera there. It would be nice if the rays were more parallel. It would make it feel more like moonlight. Um, just because it's a smaller space and it feels a little bit cluttered in there. I think that I usually tell people it's a good idea if you're going to have lights on inside these windows to go ahead and just throw some shapes back there just so it creates some shadows, makes it look like there's a little bit of life back there. I like the specular highlights you're getting on these plants. Watch out for there looks like some kind of UV problem there on that building, so just be on the lookout for that. Um, and I almost want to push this. Trying to see if it's like, do you see how bright like some of these lights get? I almost want to push this one brighter overall, um, just because I think it can something along those lines. Just and then I can start to kind of play into this, like a little bit of the warm kind of hits the specular highlight, maybe bounces some more light up in there. I think that actually will help a lot. I think that makes it look a little bit cooler. Um, yeah, but I love the kind of the aerial perspective, the dropping back into space from darker to lighter values. Yeah, let's go with that and we see where we land there. Mindy, all right, these are looking good. I think these are really nice improvements over your last iteration. What's throwing me off on this one is the angle of the grass. It's not quite like it feels like we're seeing more top down of the grass. Like it should be more perspective, kind of outward. But that's totally fine for this example. Um, yeah, I think this is looking good. I think that you can with both of these. Well, this one particular, I think this one's looking nice. And I think you can move on from this one from this example. In this one, I still feel like I'm seeing like a sharp shadow in here, and I know it might be a smaller light source, like a candle or something. But I just don't want to see that super hard shadow. The other thing is the value of these two lights is very similar. And I would just like, without looking at the reference, it's funny because like the rim light is very strong, but I'm not getting that in the area that I want to see. So I would um, decide which you want to be your more dominant light. If it is this light coming up, I would tone down that rim light and just really emphasize that, maybe push that a little bit brighter. If it is this rim light, I would just creep some of its value around onto the character's face there. All right, last up we have William. So William, this is a lovely example of um, just like using some simple shapes to replicate a scene and then get some lighting. It's a unique shot to replicate because this is he's in shadow. He's moving towards a light patch, which is interesting, but it's just not like your typical one. Because when I saw yours, I was like, oh, it'd be nice to get like a brighter spotlight on it. But seeing it now, um, and really what I'm reacting to is the amount of like how dark we're getting in the fill value, specifically in this region and in this region back there. I think you can lift those values. So you look at this, like this value isn't quite that dark, and then definitely in here, we don't get that kind of jet black feeling. We're still getting some value and variation in there. In terms of your question about these edges, it looks like it's just a artifact. Like it looks like it's out of the because I'm guessing I'm assuming you're not doing render layers and breaking things out like the character from the background. It feels like there's some sort of artifacting in the compression. I can't be 100% sure on that, but I think that's what's going on. Um, in terms of getting just getting this to match reference, I just think there needs to be a little bit more haze In the foreground overall, let's just do our little um, Gaussian blur trick here. Because I think just doing something like this overall to the shot will really kind of help it out. And I don't want to take the values too far away from where we had them, but like just having that kind of like softening, so it's not like a pixel perfect, will make it feel like there's a little bit of a haze in the environment, and that will really, really, really help you out. So I hope that helps. And I hope that helps all of you. And if you guys have any questions about anything, let me know. Again, reminder, I don't believe I'll be able to do a video critique tomorrow, but I will be back Thursday with one. But I will provide some written critiques for you tomorrow. So let me know if you have any questions. But in the meantime, happy lighting, everybody.